Alright, it is officially,
Okay, we're meeting today for the City of Laredo Technical Review Board. It's about 5:45. We're meeting on July 3rd, 2019. I'm going to dispense with reading the issue of the cell phones and all that because everybody knows that. We'll call the meeting to order. Roll call.
yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Oscar Juarez,
Present.
Mr. Ruben Benny Salinas,
Present.
Mr. Jesus Ruiz,
Present.
Mr. George Hamilton, Mr. Juan Salinas, Mr. Cesar Cantu,
Present.
Mr. Kurt Kraus,
Present.
and Mr. Edward Ochoa.
Edward had texted everybody that he was at the PNC meeting. So he would try to come over after his...
He's next door.
Okay, let me go ahead and update this list, but Mr. Chairman, you do have a quorum.
Do we have any comments from staff? Under citizens' comments, anything that you all want to add to the meeting or?
It's all pertaining to the only item on the list, so we can just,
Are you coming to the meeting or not? Yeah, because we already called the meeting we already called the meeting to order. I didn't notice that you were off the list there, but you're still a member, right? Okay. Okay, very good. All right, thanks. Bye-bye. That was Johnny. He said that he wasn't on the distribution list for the meeting, on the email group.
no, but I told them on Friday that there is a meeting, and I did send them separately.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, well, he said that he didn't receive the email, that's what he told me, that he's still officially in.
Right.
He hasn't given any formal,
Okay.
and that he's not interested in being the chairman.
Okay.
So,
Was that Danny or Johnny?
John,
Once
or
again.
Danny?
No, Danny officially.
I know, because you said Danny.
No.
He said Johnny.
Johnny.
No. No, we're referring to Mr. Juan Salinas.
Somebody forgot it.
Okay. All right, so, Mr. Chairman, you, acting chairman, you have a quorum, and,
Then the staff wanted to,
well, other than acknowledging there's nobody here for citizen comments, we wanted to open it up, but wanted to make sure no citizens here.
there's no communication from staff, then we'll move on to, or did you have some communication?
The communication was gonna be, oh, why did I only put, it's on item 5, so.
Okay, very good. So then we'll move on to item number 3, the minutes, approval of the minutes.
The minutes is on the back. We didn't have a June meeting, it was only the May meeting. We had no citizen comments. There was a motion to approve the minutes of April. And at that meeting, I basically updated the committee that we had a independent meeting with city management, fire department, planning and zoning. As a matter of fact, Mr. Ruiz, you were there. And I updated the committee that Councilman Vidal Rodriguez was there, city management, planning, building department. And the issue of the setback ordinance was the topic to kind of clear out what's going on.
Yeah, and at that, just to clarify the minutes of that day, we also made a motion to eliminate the 5 feet all around and the back. That was part of the motions that we made that day that we put into the.
To eliminate 5 feet, what do you mean?
Yeah, in other words, when we went to that meeting, Erasmo was adamant that he felt that accessory structures should be able to be at the 2.5 But
No, I know. But we couldn't make motions at that meeting. It was just, we were just discussing what direction. And I'm just saying, for the minutes, for the May meeting, I told this committee what we had discussed in that, and then the motion was made here at the May meeting, but this is the minutes, you know what I'm saying? I guess I'm not.
Is this what we discussed, changing the setbacks, eliminating the 5 feet mandatory and keeping the 2.5 for accessory structures?
Right. Yeah, and I just put as amended, and then that's what was presented.
Oh, okay.
See, so, but at that
Okay,
meeting that we were
okay,
doing,
okay,
yes,
Okay, so this covers the fact that we did.
yes, that's correct.
Okay.
See, and so that's the minutes for the May meeting. Okay, so now,
I just
that's
wanted to
what
make
I'm
sure
trying
that, that it reflected that, when we met that day, that we.
They made changes, yeah, they were proposed at that meeting with,
And we
and then
incorporated
we came to the May meeting and we incorporated them, that's correct. So obviously that meeting that I was referring to here in the minutes was before the meeting for the TRB here in May. So, but basically there was comments, I don't know, I mean, that wasn't a recorded meeting, it was just the fire department, the planning department,
Yes.
that meeting, that's what I'm talking, it was just, yes, that's correct.
By the city manager and.
And so then I communicated, since you were the only one present, I communicated to the rest of the committee members what went on in that meeting so that they could make a motion based on the communication that was set forth in that meeting. Which the motion was to approve the recommendation for the proposed amendment as amended. Now, we made some changes during that, but I didn't go into detail on that, but it's on the video and so.
That meeting was, I believe that meeting, city councilman, Vidal Rodriguez called the meeting with city management because this item hadn't gone through.
Yeah, you want to know why it was taking.
Yeah, why it was taking so long, and then he wanted to know specifically what was on, what was gonna be presented to council. And he had city management, there was the assistant city manager.
And so,
there.
and so my comment, this is for the, we're still working on the minutes, right? So
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait till.
So it really wasn't an official meeting.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't a public meeting, it wasn't a public meeting, it was more of a, that's correct, it was just, where is everybody standing? I want planning zoning, I want all city staff, and I want the TRB, and that's what happened. So, but anyway, that was what was on the minutes for
And
the
the
May.
result of that, we communicated
Right.
here that Erasmo and the councilman said, yes, we need to have the accessory structures the way they've always been.
Sure.
The way they've always been done.
Right, yes, in other words, currently, it's still in proposed, remember, we haven't changed the ordinance. Currently, you can do an accessory structure up to 2.5 feet from the property line in the back. And so, this new proposed ordinance was gonna move it back to 5 feet, and he said, no, why are we being more restrictive? And so, then that's what you were referring to, moving, yes. So, yeah, that was the change that was done on the May meeting, remember, there was no June, so that's what I'm saying, to kind of remind everybody what was discussed in the May meeting. And so that I accurately are portraying the minutes of the May meeting in these, and so unless, I don't know if.
I just wanted to make sure that was.
Yeah, I just put setback requirements as amended, and just, because that's how it really was worded in the video.
Any other comments to the minutes? And I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
And will be approved?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Then we move on to election of officers. We had Johnny Salinas as the chairman, and we had Danny Wires as vice chairman, and I replaced Danny, so we're without a vice chairman. So I guess, and then Johnny told me right now that he's not interested in being chairman. I think he was reluctantly taking the chairmanship last time,
Yes.
because nobody was raising their hands.
So, At this stage, we kind of need this committee to have a chairman and a vice chairman, so, based
I
on,
make a nomination movement. Julie, chairman,
make a
Eddie
motion.
co-chairman.
I'll second that motion.
All right.
Any other?
No way,
Any other nominations?
We're gonna bring coffee and cookies.
Yeah, you want to call me cookies?
No more coffee for you, sir?
So, there was a, okay, I don't know.
Any other, any?
No, this was a motion, is there,
It's a motion.
do we wanna move on this motion, or do you wanna,
If there's no other
or
comments.
do you wanna have discussion, is that what
Yeah,
it is?
that's what I was saying, is there any other discussion, any other nominations, anybody want to volunteer? If no, then, call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Benny, you're opposing?
No.
Oh,
Okay, motion carries.
Okay.
Okay, we'll,
do we wanna get a vice chairman?
Well, that was the
That was
motion.
vote,
That was the
that
motion.
was motion that.
Chairman and vice chairman.
Okay.
We're both nominated at the same time.
That's what I wanted to double check. Vice,
Yeah, my ears started turning red.
Go get the coffee. To make it official.
Yeah.
That's a different chairman, sir.
so I guess, we're good on that, we need item 5 is to update the City of Laredo Land Development Code, an update basically providing, and this item is, let me read it out, I guess. So, update on the City of Laredo Land Development Code, Chapter 24, Article 4 and 5, for the purpose of revising the dimensional standard setback requirements and any other matters incident thereto. So, now that the item is opened, I guess do we need to,
Yeah, and there was a, on this item, the planning and zoning, they had a special,
workshop?
workshop. I didn't realize that it was, or I guess I misunderstood, I didn't go and look at the, but it was supposed to be an official meeting for our committee also. The guys that showed up at that, meeting were Mr. Cantu and myself, were present at the meeting, and, they had a quorum. They didn't, put any,
It was a workshop to where no actions were gonna be taken. It was just to,
well, yeah, it wasn't posted for them to take action, I guess.
Yes.
There was a workshop,
Okay,
but there was no specific,
intent.
okay, intent to make, let me just finish real quick. There was, there was no intent to make a motion at that particular meeting. There was some discussion on the item, and they were still, wanting to have the, wanting to wait on the, on the setbacks on the back of the property, and that, the meeting that they didn't have a quorum on, that it seemed like the ones that were present there were leaning in favor of, the recommendation from TRB for the front setbacks on the carports. And then they felt, if I understood the meeting, they felt that it was better that this new group that's doing the recode kind of address the
other
items. Yeah, the other items. So that was the gist that I got from you.
yeah,
I don't know
well,
if you guys
first of all, that meeting, that workshop was a motion from Councilman Rodriguez at City Council to both get the Technical Review Board and the Planning and Zoning Commission to come together at a meeting as a workshop and to discuss all these items. So it became an official meeting per se, and the TRB did not have a quorum, so they couldn't, but I believe the Planning and Zoning did have a quorum, but it was not to take action, just to discuss, as Mr. Pinzon stated earlier. So based on the motion from Councilman Rodriguez, it was looked at, and yes, you're right, I believe at that time, Mr. James Kirby Snyderman, this is the new planning director for the city of Laredo, came in and spoke, and his recommendation was not to tweak more milling the land development code to leave it alone and have the overall viewed. That was his recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so,
And there was no action taken.
and then there was no action taken, there was a workshop that was done, and that's one update. But since that update, we went back, we didn't have a meeting in June, we went back to, the building department staff went back on this item to planning and zoning and presented.
What was
We divided the proposed ordinance into three. And we left your recommendation, this committee's recommendation of the front setbacks, the rear setbacks, and then the carport, we treated that individually. So it's still the proposed, what this committee wants, is still trying, but, to move forward.
So,
The only one that they wanted to accept to move forward was the carports. So,
so their recommendation was yes on the carports, no on the others, right?
no on the others, not necessarily no, but to wait.
It was tabled.
It was tabled to wait until what it is, Able Cities, this company has been hired by the city of Laredo to overhaul the land development code, which now
The
they actually,
recommendation is to wait.
recommendation is to wait.
The recommendation was to wait.
So how long does it take to?
Well, and here's another update that I'm bringing up. Last Friday, Mr. Schneidman did a kickoff party and invited,
No, they canceled last Friday's meeting.
Yeah.
no, they,
That's what I was told.
Yeah.
There you go.
no, they didn't cancel it.
I got a cancellation.
I got a cancellation, man.
That's why I didn't go.
They don't
That's what
have
they're
to.
saying.
Okay, well, I'm just telling you what the meeting was there. There was the planning and zoning people
I
there,
wasn't gonna be able to make it.
the board of adjustments were there was developers there was engineers there.
Realtors.
There were, all city staff, it seemed like all big department were there. And Mr. Snyder made a presentation and it was short. And to answer your question, he said 10 to 18 months to really overhaul the whole land development code.
Yeah.
Obviously, they were gonna chop it down into sections and stuff, but Able City was there, and
You got the email.
councilmen were there,
Okay.
so
But was
It
it
was-
Kirby who sent the letter? Was it them?
he has, I know Mr. Schneidman
I got an
asked me the communications to invite, that's all I know. I don't know if you were invited, I didn't
We had
get.
got an invitation
To go to a barbecue.
to a
Yeah.
barbecue, a place to be determined. And then on Friday, I mean, I immediately told everybody I couldn't go because I needed to be in Houston and there was no way I was gonna make it back in town. And it was a previous, I couldn't cancel that meeting either way.
Yeah.
If they had said it on that.
So anyway,
And then we received a cancellation.
Richard, yeah.
So we received an email canceling the meeting.
I can bring that forward and, or I can have Mr. Schneidman come and talk to his committee and present.
But at the meeting for the staff, there was a recommendation for stakeholders that should be consulted to help provide feedback on this review of the recode, and TRB members were included. So in other words, you weren't at the kickoff meeting, but you'll be consulted, invited to provide feedback.
Right, they were still going to, and they also said they were going to have, at every district, there were not, several meetings and at sites, and so they were trying to get all committee involvement, actual, citizens involvement, staff involvement, professionals. They were gonna reach out to architects, engineers, LBA. There was a whole list that was done on who should all be invited, and so obviously committees, it was just basically an announcement.
Right.
That they're trying
Similar
to,
to the way, I don't know if anybody participated on the comprehensive plan?
Yes.
yeah,
Did
Well,
you-
I didn't.
On any of the?
I did, but,
Okay, so I went to a lot of the meetings on the comprehensive plan.
but I can have Mr. Steinman, if you want, to communicate to them so that, if you guys wanna have him come and.
So what he told me that immediately, because the email came from Edward Ochoa, and I copied and I thought that maybe the reason it was copied to him to Mr. Kirby, right? He likes to go by Kirby, I think, right?
That's correct.
Kirby,
I'm just professionally
it was,
saying Mr.
Mr. Kirby or Mr. Schneidman?
Snyderman.
Mr. Schneidman and Edward originated, Seidman was copied, and then sent the TRB members in that list, and then I responded no, and Mr. Schneidman sent me an email saying that, oh, don't worry if you can't make it, reach out to staff and we'll bring you up to.
Right.
And so he offered to bring this, anybody up to date that couldn't make that. meeting.
Right.
A concern that I've always had about the land development code that we have, is, and I mentioned it to Mr. Snyder when you were there in the meeting outside. What's the sense of having a land development code if by the time the city takes it over or annexes property, it's already been destroyed by the county?
Oh, the county has an ETJ.
Number one, I'm just gonna paraphrase.
The county has, they have certain powers within 5 miles of the city limits, is my understanding, that regulate the improvements, any improvements, any capital improvements that get done. For example, if you're within the ETJ and you want to build a city street, then they have oversight on, making sure the utilities are to city specs, the streets are to city specs, and you're following those rules. And the only reason I know that is because years ago, they were trying to do a subdivision over there close to Rio Bravo, and that was Octavio Salinas, and that's when they were doing the concrete homes. And they were doing they had bought some land out there, and they were going to do a subdivision, and they were within 5 miles of the ETJ. So there's a lot of interlocal, agreements that had to get done, and they had to submit their plans to the city, along with a set of plans to the county.
So we had a meeting with that.
To answer your question is, in the county, anytime, here's the property line or here's the city limits, inside the city limits, you can enforce city ordinances. The moment you are outside the city limits, then we don't have jurisdiction to enforce, or the city does not have the jurisdiction to enforce their ordinances.
But neither does the county.
So, no, but the county, according to the
They-
state,
I don't
the
think they
local
have
government
zoning.
code, and I want to say chapter 232, is when it's subdivisions, that's just for subdivisions, their powers are very limited by the state. So counties don't have the ability, like for instance, to zone. They don't have the ability to do zoning. They don't have the abilities to have building departments and inspect. And so, yeah, you're right, there could be development done, but it's really, I don't know how the county is approving it or however, right? I'm sure they've got some kind of inspection, but getting back to your question is, if they've already ruined it, I don't know what
The
to
city
do by
has
that.
oversight
Yeah.
over
Remember-
all the capital improvements.
Well,
The city goes up-
what Mr. Ruiz is referring to, when it's tax dollars that are being, that they do have powers there. But when it's private development, in private property, in the county, the city doesn't have jurisdiction, and the county
They don't
has
have-
limited powers that are given from the state to enforce things. So that's where, I don't know if you want to say the
I think it's-
crack, that things are falling through the
If
crack.
you're one of the
What
subdivided less
happened,
than 5
like for
acres or
example,
whatever it
at
is,
Unitech,
or 50 acres.
not Unitech, what is it called? Where, Roy used to be in that area, that was outside the city limits when they developed it. But this county had to sign off and all this, just like the city. But there was a rule in it that said, hey, if you want city services, like they had to tap into the city water, you had to meet our standards, and the city will go out there and inspect, make sure that you meet the city standards, and you had to pay 1 1/2 the price of one rate because you're outside the city limits. And the developer signed for it because they wanted it. They needed it.
The reason I'm bringing this up, because we had a meeting with a county judge and Rhonda Tiffin and all the group of people in that area, that particular area, which is 83 North. And everybody was concerned about the growth that was taking place there. And the judge said we have no power, no zoning, we cannot do anything about it.
Well,
And people complain
again,
about all the-
but
But
but I guess we're kind of digressing. I just wanted to say what Mr. Schneidman proposed at this meeting, at this kickoff, that said, it basically, they're gonna make it more relaxed. They're gonna make it more, what a property owner trying to do. They're not intending to make it more restrict. As a matter of fact, they wanna bring in, how are you gonna develop? So it's gonna be updated, but in a way to allow more things, not like, oh, it's this zone, you gotta go through this rezoning, and applications to go through, hey, well, now you need to change the zone, or, you know, they're gonna focus more on the development and to make sure that that it's better. Now, there's a lot of focus to be, as the Viva Laredo plan is to stay, not to expand, like to more density, and so I don't know.
So we had a land development code when we developed the mine road? What would I tell you?
The Mines Road has always been there.
Yeah, there's a land, yeah, because the zoning came about in 79 or something like that, no? Or what?
No, the land development order was adopted in 82.
82?
82.
Okay. And then they had lots of records. Yeah, in other words, so yes, but every time that you have a zone change, you're changing the land use plan of the city. So even though the city they're designated this area as residential, you can have a zone change that goes through P&Z, there's a recommendation to council, and then to me, that automatically updates the land use plan because it went through all the formal, public hearings and all that other stuff, so. There was even a moratorium one time, back in Mines Road, they had tried to enforce a moratorium.
Wastewater.
No, it wasn't wastewater, it had to do with, they were concerned that the industrial was close to the river. So they tried to enforce a moratorium, I believe, if I remember correctly, to halt all development out there, and then ultimately they backed off that moratorium. And now we have tentacles.
My concern is,
Very nice, I think
We're just gonna pinch off
You know, we-
this main artery right there and just hold it for a while. See what happens.
we've destroyed every main entrance into the city. 83 South, 59 South, 359 South,
Personally, I haven't destroyed
the
anything.
Mines Road, and 83 North was the only area that had not been destroyed yet, but it's happening already. What's happening on 83 North is what's happening in the Mines Road. And if we let that happen, that was the only
These
area.
are great questions that need to be, these are great
For the
questions.
veteran community.
This experience is exactly what Mr. Schneidman is looking for to direct the new, he's calling it the Recode Laredo, just so you know. And so to have these things in place, obviously, anything that's already forecasted, development that's already there, is not gonna be affected. This is only gonna affect new development that hasn't been planned. He says it's not fair for the people that had already planned.
We lost our quorum.
I know, and then, I'm just trying to communicate what Mr. Simon said, but of course I can have him, tell you guys individually. The whole intent, and not to say, no to development, the whole intent is to make it where,
To get people to voice their
Right.
opinion.
and so he said, the more input that he gets, the better the code's going to be, because that's really, you could have experts come in and tell you, but at the same time, people that, if you have input, if you're all this, that's how he explained it. I'm not the planner, he's the certified planner.
It makes sense, though.
So he wants involvement, and he's proposing to not make it easier to do it, like simplify it. Not, you gotta go through all these hoops and what do you need to do and all that.
And right now, once that recode goes, it goes through P&Z, is that correct?
The recode goes through PNC, that's correct.
For a recommendation to
Right.
the council.
But
So my.
it's not just going through PNC. He's asking for all committees, all,
In other words, he's asking for opinions. In other words, he's asking for people's opinions, so take it into consideration, and it may or may not get added to the recode. So I think I think then
That's correct.
B and Z gets an opportunity to say, hey, we don't recommend this, or we do recommend this, or we need to get a chance to do this, which they should have done on the comp plan. I don't know what they ended up, and if they ended up changing anything to the comp plan or not. My suggestion, and this is what I've been telling people, and I've even mentioned to some of the councilmen, and I'm going to reach out to my councilman that appointed me, is that I feel that the TRB should also have a recommendation for that recode.
Well, I'll be honest, I would want clarification for this committee because it's still technically an ad hoc.
Yeah, it's an ad hoc committee,
And-
we talked about getting it to be a permanent.
Until that's done,
No, what I'm saying is individually,
sure,
We
and
talked to our
maybe council members would want to give a direction because it's such a broad scope what the powers of this committee has, and so,
the original intent and the original motion that, trying to remember, seeing his face right now.
David.
No, it's, George replaced Vera.
wasn't
Jorge
Vera.
Vera. It was Jorge Vera. Jorge Vera had gone to a meeting, and he was active in the Laredo Builders Association. He had gone to a meeting at the Laredo Builders Association. It wasn't a board meeting, but it was a meeting of the developers and all that other stuff. And we had, in that meeting, it was kind of like the development committee of the Builders Association. And somebody brought up to Mr. Vela, we should, have a technical review, board, because of all these situations. And then he made a motion there at the council that there'd be an ad hoc committee, and that committee was supposed to review any ordinances that affected the development side.
No, any changes to any proposed changes.
To the development.
Right, so in other words, if
So
staff or something was
This
proposed.
recode is a big,
Okay, but not every, like,
Fall under that.
yes, it would fall under that.
and if I may, Mr. Reese,
In my opinion, it falls under
no,
that.
I'm just saying, the proposed changes that staff was pushing through and getting checked, you guys didn't have a voice. And so this committee was there to see that the proposed changes, that you guys would have a say-so. Not existing ordinances
No,
to
not
change.
not
And so
changing
what
this
this,
or-
no, but what this
or-
committee
that kind of
has evolved into, we need to fix that. Hey, let's look at that. And so it's it wasn't a proposed change, it was look at it. And then, well, we have proposed changes, which wasn't the original,
The vote asked for
no.
a recommendation, yeah.
well, yeah, but for proposed changes that were already coming down the pipe, those were, and so then it looked at the
Yeah, no,
R1Bs and then the payment ordinance.
The major things that
Storm.
the major things that this TRB committee has affected change has been, the first one was to come up with a R1B
Mhm.
zoning, which was even before, this Villa Laredo, that they wanted high density.
Mhm.
We came up with a 3,000 square foot, 35-foot lot ordinance, so there's now an R1B. And then the second major one that we affected change on was the drainage ordinance, which was, in other words, in our city, they forced us to put all the water to the street. In other cities, they have A, B, and C drainage, which means that A, you drain to the street, B, you can drain to the street and to the back, C, you drain only to the back. So we were able to make those changes, and we also incorporated some additional changes that the staff had been wanting to change that had not been able to change.
No, there was also the pavement ordinance where they
The
got
third one, yeah.
Pavement.
The third one was a pavement ordinance where we had three
The local
yeah, we had
streets.
1 million easels on local collectors. And when we did the study, we did a collecta from the Builders Association. Builders Association paid 5,000, Armadillo paid 5,000, Westwind paid 5,000, San Isidro paid 5,000, the Newmans paid 5,000. We raised money, we gave it to the city to go out for an RFP to relook at the easel counts for the for the local streets, residential local streets. It didn't incorporate the arterials, only local collectors and local streets. As a result of that study, which there was it took forever and a lot of
Goes back to the word design.
yeah, it was over designed. So we ended up with 270 easels, I think, or 250 or 270 easels for local collectors, and I think it was like 50,000 easels for local streets. I don't know, but anyways, that whole section got changed. So in certain cases, you still need to do the 2 and 10, but you can in some cases do 1.5 and 8, which was the original what was forever and ever that worked over and over again. And then it did add some additional cost to our development because concern from staff was that the materials that are being used today were not of the same quality of materials that were being used in the past. So they added a wet ball mill test, and that has added expense to the whole process, but it also has curtailed some of the materials that were currently meeting the specifications for underneath, for the base. So in your development, I'm sure you're seeing the wet ball mill test, and maybe you hadn't before, and I think that test is, I don't know if it's 300 or 600, and every time it fails, you have to do it all over. You have to do it all over again.
But at the end of the day, those added costs don't amount to nearly what
The same,
thickness of asphalt.
Yeah, the asphalt and that
base
kind of
was.
stuff.
I mean, so
Yeah.
in the end, it makes housing a little more affordable.
It makes it, yes, accessible.
There's also a proposed material and
Polymer.
and polymer, a method to doing
Stabilizing
base
salt.
that is being proposed. It went to the,
It adds elasticity.
it's a different concept. Instead of making a hard, rigid structure and then sealing it and then putting asphalt on it, there's a,
Now it's the.
No.
This
you
has
agree.
been done for a long, long time.
And so-
Everybody uses it all the time. They
and
just-
so actually a TechStop project has been approved to do it. And basically, because of all the easel counts, you're having a pumping action, right? As they're going through, you're putting pressure on the pavement. And
If you
so,
look at the elasticity curve, concrete is over here and plastic is over here. This particular blend, it keeps it in the middle, which means that it gives you,
strength but flexibility.
that's right. And it's kind of like, it moves,
Which is what I like about asphalt. In other words, when people do concrete,
but it
But it's at the
does.
base level.
when
It's at
people
the
do
base level.
concrete parking lots, what happens to it?
They crack. If they don't do it right.
Well, they don't seal the damn joints.
Yeah.
So that-
So that goes to the
so
base
the
level.
crack or, the seal, over time,
You got a new member.
need to redo it.
He's going, hey, Edward.
Oh, good.
Bottom that side?
Bye, guys.
We'll
anyway.
We'll recognize
We'll recognize it, Mr. Ochoa. So anyway, and I don't know if Mr. Ochoa was there at that meeting, but it was for the TSP where this polymer, and I think Ramon Chavez has agreed to do a pilot program or something.
So long as it's an alternative,
Well, let me just give you the cut and dry. Let me just give you the cut and dry. It's cheaper and it lasts longer. That's what they're selling.
Yeah.
And so the city's saying, well, good, if you can make less less base to do a road, because the whole concept is different, not a rigid structure and sealing it, but having a flexible structure that can handle all the easel counts and all that, where it's not gonna affect. Now, you're not gonna do it for restructuring streets that are already there, but you're gonna do it on new sections.
It
where-
uses back materials, it
Yes,
works better.
high PI soils, if they're the fine
the
ones.
biggest problem that we have with our streets, the biggest problem that we have with the streets.
Irrigation system.
No, the biggest problem that we have with our streets is that
18-wheelers.
we pave them and then we do nothing
No
until
maintenance.
they fall apart.
Yes.
And then at that point, then ya valió.
Well, there's other issues besides maintenance. Like, as soon as you build it, here comes everybody and runs over it. Hey, they're not made for, if you're gonna do a street for houses, they don't, and then here comes all the development, all the builders bringing the concrete, they don't have construction interest.
But you have a director that doesn't believe in sealing streets, you know. I seal my parking lot, and I can see the difference of how long it's lasting me because I sealed it. I mean, I don't see why I don't seal that in the street.
There's no
We used to
maintenance.
seal streets a long time ago.
I'm sorry,
The other thing.
I think Mr. Chavez is now bringing in a maintenance program.
Yeah,
that's
there's
leading
no
to effect.
maintenance of the street.
So we need to
They
address
have
that.
a pothole, you know how they fill the pothole?
Horrible.
They fill it, they don't saw cut it, and then do the proper repair
And so-
on the pothole. All they do is temper it, move on to the next one.
It's
And
Temper it,
so-
so there's no like nice saw cut to where you seal the deal, so
Yes.
water's gonna automatically.
So-
There's a myriad of reasons, but you know what the biggest deal is?
Wait, I thought
You
you
know,
were
you
talking.
know what the biggest deal is? That we're spending all this money today, and probably in 20 years, the cars are gonna be hovering over the damn streets.
They are the white potholes.
No, they're gonna be hovering, yeah. They're gonna be like the Jetsons, you know?
Wait a minute, so just to give you what the,
Those potholes, it's just the same.
Mr. Troy, were you at the kickoff meeting for the?
No, was it canceled, Mr.?
Which one?
The barbecue,
Barbecue.
the recode? Did you go to the recode meeting?
I ended up, they had it they told me last minute to go.
But they sent out an email to everybody not to
There was a
go.
miscommunication.
Yeah.
There was a miscommunication.
Okay. But anyway, he addressed that he's trying to make it more,
They over invited, it was supposed to be a small thing, and they invited a bunch of people, and then they're like, oh no, we didn't mean for it to be that many, and so.
Ooh, Chewy, you two guys got the cut.
Yeah.
Never got invited in the first place. Never made the cut.
No, you were you used the TRB crew. Yeah, I looked at it and.
Yeah, everybody.
Was it?
Was on there? Yes. Well, I was out of town last
And I got the email from Edward, and the first thing I said, okay, was everybody copied on here? And I did like a little quick glance,
Yeah.
and then I sent the email saying, hey,
Yeah.
I'm out of here.
I think
I apologize for that.
no, but,
I apologize for that.
well, that's the.
Yeah, I will send it to people that you know that could benefit from this thing. And I said, well, I said, okay, so I sent it to everybody. And then I was told, no, not after all, let's get everybody off. So then we all backed off. I wasn't even gonna go that day. And then I get a phone call like 10 minutes before, hey, I'm gonna go to this thing, come with me. I was like, I thought it was canceled. No. Okay. So,
We have vice chairman and vice chairman.
Chairman.
It is voted, so congratulations, Mr. Ruiz, so I don't know if it's.
So, okay, just to, I know we got off on the.
5 minute limit, Mr. Reese.
Yeah. I believe that what was recommended at that, because I went back and looked at that P and Z meeting after, I didn't even know the meeting was taking place, or I missed it. And I know I get the emails, but I don't always look at the P and Z deals, and that one, for whatever reason, it just, like your email, you didn't even see the email probably. I was like, did I get a copy for that meeting? And sure enough, I was copied there, because I'm on the distribution list. But I thought after looking at the tape and all that stuff, that what they were recommending was that those items, other than the carports, and your half-brother abstained from it, because, he abstained because he said, hey, why are you bringing this back? I thought this was going to, it seemed to me like he was a little bit not happy with the fact that the carports were coming back again, even though they weren't supposed to. In other words, everything was supposed to go to the deal. So I thought that the recommendation that they had was that it go to the what do you call it, to the
City
RICO.
council.
Yeah, to the
Well,
RICO.
here's the thing. This committee voted to get the front setbacks, the rear setbacks, and the
Everything.
carports.
Yeah,
After submitting it to the planning and zoning a couple of times, they're like, no, we want a workshop and we want this, we want that. We had a meeting, and so then they decided to say,
but at the time, they were still not interested in anything other than the
yes,
carport.
yes, if you let me. So then, I'm just trying to recap everything.
Yeah.
So then, finally, there was some discussion on just present it separately, okay? So, when I presented the carport as a separate ordinance just for carports, as a revision,
Because they told you that they wanted to push the.
that one they wanted to push.
Yeah.
And so, the other ones are being tabled.
Yeah, well, they said table, but their recommendation is to push it to the RICO. That was their recommendation.
Right.
Including the
That's,
carport.
so the carport, so I'm providing an update.
Going forward, there was one abstention, which, George, George Beckelheimer, Mr. Beckelheimer was the one that abstained.
No, he wasn't there.
Yes, it was.
It was
That's
the
all right.
guy.
No,
No,
Mr.
it was
Beckelheim.
Yeah, because he comes from being on a board, like a councilman, he's president, is he still president of the LSD board, or?
No, he's not on the board anymore.
He's not, but he was past president of the
Past president.
the
LISD.
board. So he's like extremely structured when when he's doing stuff, so it was like, hey, this is what we discussed, so I'm abstaining.
Yes. He abstained. So,
Yeah.
anyway, so this carport setback got passed by planning and zoning 2 weeks ago, I guess.
And they recommended no one.
And so it's gonna be on the paper this Sunday for the August the 5th city council meeting as a public hearing for anybody to talk about it. So, and then after that, council decides where to move forward, and so that's the update
So
on that.
that
The other two-
TRB recommendation is going, and the P&Z recommendation is going, right?
And yes, I'm going to, that was what this committee wanted, right? The only thing is,
Say that again?
We
I think you're right, I just wanna get my-
got two recommendations going, we got the P&Z
Which
recommendation.
is carport only,
Carport only.
and
For
ours, which
Costa Rica.
was everything.
Ours was just everything.
Yeah, and so, yeah.
Yeah, so in other words, the
That's
council.
what we had discussed the whole time, that it wasn't that our item was gonna go to P and Z for approval.
Right,
It was they were to review ours and either generate, agree or disagree or whatever.
Right.
And you get two commissions, ours and theirs, making recommendations for this.
the only thing is with that, Mr. Troy, is that when we talk to legal,
They can't.
it's still technically tabled at planning and zoning. It's
No,
not
they-
approved or denied.
They
If it doesn't
recommended
get
to go
past planning and
Rico.
zoning, well,
Recommended to go to RICO.
Yeah,
they recommended to not, I mean, they tabled it, right? And so, they haven't approved it, so technically,
Yeah.
any change to the land development code has to be ruled by whether it's a positive or negative, whether it's approved or denied, by the planning and zoning before it can move on to city council.
yeah,
So that's what our legal department
I mean,
said. And so,
that's fine. I mean, legal.
from a legal standpoint, as far as a charter is concerned,
Yeah,
so that's where
yeah,
it's at.
it is what it
And
is.
so,
So,
I'm going to voice this committee's recommendations to legal department to put it on the August the 5th.
Yeah, they should go together.
That's what, that's what
And
the
I think that's what
recommendation
I think
was.
that's what the council's expecting.
So,
yeah, I get you, it is what it is, right?
No, no,
I mean,
that's
it is what it is. I'm sure there'll be some argument from the other side about, let's just put it in the recode and.
and
That's
just
up to council.
to update you, Mr. Choa, the things that were talked about on the front and rear setbacks were the stormwater, your I guess in a way, it was proposed to have more, I guess,
Impervious cover.
impervious cover, which could probably be more runoff. So
we have
that could be an
together.
issue. And the other issue could be impact on the water and sewer. You've got more livable area, you might have more fixtures. And if everybody starts, the existing line's already there, if everybody starts getting a little more, it could. They're not saying that it is, so they want to look at it more closely and maybe manage it a little bit different.
Is there
Water and
anything
sewer
else- is there
impact
anything
to
else
the
that they didn't
existing
plan for the city
infrastructure.
For water?
So
Less than?
I mean,
it may not be at the local street,
yeah.
it maybe not even at the local collector, but overall at the.
I mean, again, I can see the stormwater impact. Maybe that's
So,
valid.
anyway,
I can see that.
So those were the topics that the planning and zoning was wanting to clear up. Not that what it actually said, it may be a great idea that the TRB is request or proposing this, but they wanted to kind of look at it more closely than just blindly say, yeah, go ahead. And so that was really what the commission.
It's really, in all ways that you look at it, people have the ability to do all improvements in the backyard except for living area, and it's wrong. You can do pretty much anything you want in your backyard, so long as it's not living area. And so you can look at an aerial of the whole city of Laredo, and you'll see, 10 to 15% that really are aggressive at the utilization of their backyards, and then the other 80% are not aggressive. So just by the mere fact that you can do more residential doesn't mean that people still don't want to have a backyard. Most people, like I said, when I build a home, I want to have a backyard for my family, unless the family says, hey, I seriously don't want the backyard. Okay, but this is the limits. In other words, you have to maintain 20 feet according to city ordinances. So I don't see this.
Sure, and we're not saying I'm not saying that, I'm saying, I'm communicating what the commission concerns were. And right along, and they acknowledge that they could be totally wrong in their position, however, they wanted to look at it. So that's why they
are
asked.
35 feet away from their neighbors. In other words, they're 10 feet away from their neighbors already on the side yards. I mean, you can go to Plantation. In Plantation, you have these huge lots, and guess what? They build a house up to 5 feet from the property line. People want to be able to use their land. I mean, they're paying heavily for it, and I want to be able to improve it. The only reason and even when I was on the Board of Adjustments, we had a couple of approvals to go from the 8 feet to the 5 feet on some of the buildings out there. So through the Board of Adjustments, even in Delmar, people are getting closer than the 8 feet on the front, on the side.
Based on the meeting that you and I went to, I thought that what I heard there, we didn't do a good job in our presentation.
They didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Be honest. In other words, their deal, they really didn't want to pursue the backyard.
Well, I honestly told the commission that I wasn't qualified to give him an economical or.
Look at the tape.
What was the other?
There was no interest in.
What was the other one that they wanted, the psychological impact of these? We looked at it from a technical point, and we looked at it from a building point.
your neighbor is when you open the
So,
This is
and so that's really what they wanted. The focus was, what the planning and zoning was looking at was, the focus was totally different than what this committee looked at as far as setbacks were concerned. We looked at it code-wise and structure-wise, and
Utilities was okay with it, fire department was okay with it. You talk to anybody on the street
I
and
don't
you ask
think
them,
Terry
you
was there.
want to be able to build more in your backyard? Yes, do you care if your neighbor, if I can do it, then I don't care if my, if my neighbor does it.
Right, and one of the
If
comments
somebody
that
in your backyard builds it up to 5 feet, it's no different than your neighbor being at 5 feet. I have that situation in my home.
right,
I have my neighbor in the back.
it was asked to
It's
the
a T, so
commission.
it's 5 feet from the back of my.
not only that, it's a nationwide issue, It's something that's going on
It's
all over the
inside
nation.
Yes,
It needs to be looked
my
at,
backyard
yes.
is inside yard, so I'm
But the
already 5
issue
feet
was, why
from it.
give
It could be an
every
outbuilding.
property
Living area
owner
could be 2.5 feet.
the
Well, yes.
vote?
to say one way or the other. Where at least that's what one of the commission members said. Well, a lot of people might say, yeah, I don't care, yeah, go ahead and build. But they may not be qualified to give a real good opinion. And so that's really, I'm like, okay, well, like I said, they're more focused on not necessarily restricting development, but more what is the impact, economical and psychological, and I went, wait. I'm not qualified to give you that answer. From an engineering background, I'll tell you, is it up to code? I'll look at the fire code, distances, how is it built, that I can talk about. But economical and psychological impact, I say, with all due respect, I don't have, and that's when they said, we need to go to a workshop.
Budget to go over?
And yeah, so anyway, so that's the update. So I'm going to, I don't know what you guys feel like doing at this stage. But I can definitely communicate. You guys voted to move.
What else can we do? We did.
We did what we
asked to do.
We've done what we asked to do. You
We've
guys
done what
should
we were asked to do.
present both, both things.
That's it.
Because that's what the council-
It's gonna go to council, and I guess the only thing we can do is be present at council to discuss the item. I don't know.
I just think that we didn't properly clarify why we were doing this.
Oh, no, I went to.
We gave them
at least 3 meetings, and we went over it at the same discussions that we've had here, to the extent that they allowed me to talk, was the same. And you were there probably at 1 or 2 of the meetings, weren't you?
Maybe one, yeah.
Yeah, so we talked about, the fact that you can do anything you want in the backyard except living area. The fact that, that when this thing originated, I said, it wasn't just, in other words, it wasn't just Mr. Rodriguez. It was Mr. Rodriguez, it was Villalma, it was George Allgilt, it was Charlie San Miguel. There was a consensus out there, otherwise they wouldn't have even come to TRB. In other words, all of them were like, yes, we need to have people, and when you talk to the council people, I told them, I said, when you talk to the council people, I've asked George, hey, well, what do you want the setbacks to be? 0.
Was it clarified that it would be more revenues maybe?
Does it seem to me like the council members haven't expressed what they've expressed to us?
No.
And what they've tasked to us, they haven't expressed that to P&Z, to their own representatives there? You know what I mean? They're the ones saying, if you're saying they're the ones saying all of that, have they just not expressed that
All I'm
to
telling you is
the
that
P&Z commissioners?
at the meetings that I went to when this first thing
They
originated,
say the opposite of what he's saying.
Let me ask you.
who said that?
PNC.
That their council people are telling them different? So why is the council unanimously?
I'm just telling you what,
That's what I'm lost.
Yeah, I don't think they're saying that the council members are telling them that. I think they're saying that that's their opinion.
Committee started looking at this, and when it came back for sending it in, maybe that's the problem, is that between when they got excited about it and when it came back to them, so much has gone wrong, you know what I mean?
No. This has been before council numerous times because.
Once, introductory.
It went introductory because it went introductory because, and it got approved. In other words, it was a unanimous approval on the recommendation from TRB. And then it got back, since there was no recommendation from P&Z again, then.
It got tabled.
Councilman said, there was a motion to say have a workshop to get the recommendations from both, from those, both people. And now, my understanding of the recommendation is that they're tabling, in other words, and they're pushing, their recommendation is to push the items other than the carports to the recode.
Right,
Yeah.
but you know what I'm getting at is just the whole concept of ahead of steam, you know what I mean? And this process takes a long time, and that just tends to erode momentum.
I think that Vidal has been on this thing for a long time. And then when I've talked to council people, you talk to George Allgilt, it's kind of like, hey, we want more density. We want people to be able to have more density in the city area. We want people. He's a libertarian. So he doesn't believe in government, oversight.
Did
So
we-
he wants to,
Did we ever do an analysis as to how much revenues were gonna be created by doing this?
what I can tell you is, what I did.
Not only that, but we also gave them other cities, what are the setbacks. But we couldn't compare apples to apples, like for instance, San Antonio, they have so many different sizes of lots and so much different that
But in
there are
Austin,
different
that's-
setbacks for each zone. So, we got lots from 10 acres to 5 acres to 1
That's
acre.
correct. On the
to half
first
an acre.
meeting, they said, well, what other cities what other cities they have? So with the second meeting, we took them the stuff from Corpus, we took them the stuff from Austin,
Cameron,
and,
Brownsville.
yeah, McAllen.
I brought it up, I know I did,
We gave them the charts, and Austin has up to 5 feet. So Austin has already, has certain areas that they have.
But only on certain zones, not on all zones. See, the difference between this recommendation and what the Austin had is that it didn't matter the zone, it's the use. And so that's where it kind of just went from this section to this. And so that's what they saw. That it would end, and not just on new lots, but on every lot, existing. And so they went, whoa, wait a minute. And so that's really the difference where we were trying to present apples to apples, and well, it's not the same. Because so that's where they started, and maybe,
And as far as the numbers, I did an informal, because at one point, they wanted they kind of like switched it on me. It's like, at one point, they said, oh, well, we want the financial impact of this thing. And then one of the members wasn't there, right, at that meeting. So when I went to the second meeting, I said, well, I've got the numbers on the financial, an informal, presentation on the financial. So what, is this all about money? No, it's something that you guys had. That's what. I said, no, it's not about money. It's about giving people an opportunity to utilize their hard-earned, paid-for land.
Expensive land.
Expensive land for living.
And creating more taxable.
Yes,
value.
and the chart that I had, I may have it in the Jeep there, was that I went back and I took several subdivisions, and what I did was I picked like three or four properties in those subdivisions, old subdivisions, Liberty Hills, which is off of Shiloh, that subdivision over there. I went into Rio Doso, I did the new area of San Isidro, I did Fiesta subdivision, I did Concord Hills, I did Las Misiones, I did Lomas del Sur, I did Cuatro Vientos. I took about at least 10 different areas, and what I tried to do on that spreadsheet was, I had gone to the first time that this Manzini guy came to town. He's a guy from up north. You're
the guy at the inner city.
He had already made a presentation prior to that one for the AIA group. So I went to that meeting, and what he is a high proponent of is going vertical, because all of a sudden your revenues per square foot of land are much higher. So
not only the impact on the water and sewer is, you're getting more bang for your buck as far as for what the city needs to maintain versus how much you're getting back.
Yeah. So
By the way,
sprawl.
that guy is a member of the Able City.
Right.
Well, good.
So
He's gonna agree with us.
anyway, but it's there's a lot of
answer
things.
the financial deal. When I went back and I looked at his analysis, in other words, what is the taxable dollars per square foot of land, as opposed to looking at the taxable value of the living square footage or the building square footage, and we have smaller home sites in the south side, it was pretty comparable.
Makes sense.
Pretty comparable that, although maybe the houses are selling for $110 a foot over there, the new construction, and North Laredo is 120 or 130, but the land, if you take the taxable dollars divided by the amount of land, man, it's pretty
Because of the density,
because of the, yes, well,
the coverage.
yeah, the coverage.
Like more than just the coverage if you're going up.
Yeah, but even if you're not going up, I guess what I'm saying is, because the lots are smaller, the construction, it was weird, the numbers are very close. I mean, so you think, oh, you know, the city doesn't get enough revenues from the south side.
Yeah, on a per square foot basis.
On a per square foot basis, it's pretty comparable. On a per square footage,
So that was a good point to make, and they just,
no, they didn't even want to consider it. They said, oh, well, why are you so interested in numbers?
but this guy who's on the Able Cities group.
He wants more
He
vertical
supports
for multiple reasons.
he's-
One of them is utilities.
What he's
street systems,
proposing
streets.
is, we've got an opportunity to look at the entire city, at different areas, you know, downtown, in industrials, and rather than piecemealing it for certain areas or new construction. And the analogy that he used was, you know, if you're gonna replace the radiator just because your car's heating up, you wanna look at other things that might be causing your car to heat up, rather than just replacing your radiator, you know, which is probably not a very good when you're looking at a you know, city. But he's saying, we're trying to fix something when we don't know what really is impacting, or maybe other areas that we can look at. Let the land development, you know, analysis and these experts that are coming down, because if these guys, I mean, we've got a guy from Colorado that has done land development all over the nation. We've got this guy that he's talking about, that's looking at the tax value of your,
Downtown. I was looking at the downtown.
but not just downtown.
And he's got like a chart, like a
A rice.
Like
a cost of-
like a barcode, you know, the
Bar graph.
bar graph. He's got a bar graph, and he lays out your city, and he'll say, on this hot zone, the taxable dollars are up here versus the taxable dollars down here.
He's saying inner city, wherever you have vertical structures, you have obviously more square footage of usable area, therefore you're getting more tax dollars because the tax are based on.
That was the focus of his inner city summit. The focus was
Yeah.
selling people on investing in downtowns. And so that's where his focus
Yeah, and-
was. I mean,
and he
generally
talks about
speaking,
density.
you can take that focus to apply it to
Well,
suburban areas, right? But,
I used his methodology for myself to see, okay, you know, I've heard comments that, you know, the tax base is less, but tax base per square foot of land is pretty comparable. You know, from the north side to the south side. The other thing is, I went to like some of the meetings on, you know, the land, the comprehensive plan and all that stuff. You know, a lot of this stuff, although they talk about the millennials, that's a preferred housing and all that other stuff, but once they have kids, they want their backyards, they want their, you know, so the whole pitch or the whole conversation at those meetings was, okay, no, you're gonna be able to do both. You're gonna be able to do, you know, get all this high density and get the city to subsidize it because it's so expensive, you know, to do, and then you're gonna be able to do your old, you know, the old way of doing it. That's what we were told at those meetings. And then when you look at the comprehensive plan now, if you want to do a local collector, it's 80 feet right of way. It's an 80-foot right of way. And one of the comments that, you know, and even your planning director, I went to one of the meetings, I said, guys, when you're doing your, you know, that comp plan, we should be targeting no more than 16% for right-of-ways. You know, and I said, and it's not something, I said, when I was at the bank, and it was a rule of thumb, it was 20%. In other words, the developer would come in and says, okay, you know, I've got 20% that's right-of-ways, you know, 80% sellable. You know, when, at that same P&Z meeting that you all presented, they were doing
Concord Hills.
No, it wasn't Concord Hills, it was Century City.
Century City.
And then, ¿cómo se llama? Roger wasn't, he didn't have the numbers in front of him. They're asking him, well, what's the density in there? He's like, I'm just here for a zone change. You know, yeah, don't be asking me for numbers, you know, but I'm here for a zone change.
Yeah, but that was another phase, it was a master plan that had been over.
Mr. Kirby said, well, we can do it, we can determine it real quick. He says, if we knock out, 20% for right of way, and we take his, 4,500 square foot, we should have 100-something lots.
Anyway, right now, see, it was master plan, but it was master plan to be R1s. And so, but the master plan had been there and it had been like 30 years since
But
they.
the point I'm trying to make is that right now, the way the comp plan is more than 20% for right of ways. So, I mean, we're talking about making zero affordability for housing.
But if you heard what Mr. Schneidman was saying was basically that, first of all, the change was to make the R1s to, I think,
R1As.
R1As. And so what that is you can make smaller lots. And so there was all this opposition, no, now we're gonna have all these little bitty houses, and so people didn't really understand.
Multi-family.
Well, and number one,
If you don't like it, you can buy a strip of land from your neighbor.
well, here's the thing, When people fail to realize that that planning and zoning commission
I
was,
thought it was excellent.
that master plan,
I'm motion for that.
that master plan has been, after 10 years, your master plan is dissolved. If you don't do nothing, if you don't do a thing,
Make
it took 30 years. So there was no reason to be any opposition because the master plan, the argument was, no, we were told it's gonna be R1s only. Yeah, but after 10 years, if you don't do a phase, that master plan goes by the wayside and they have to re-master plan that land. So that was one argument. But the other thing was, you're talking about going from 80 houses to
Your
110.
approval never goes away.
Yes, they do.
May I ask you a question?
Master plan in mind.
Are the setbacks the same for all lot sizes?
Yes.
Yes. Except the RS,
Unless the developer decides to make a difference.
except the RS.
And to answer
Normally,
your
it's
question,
20.
and maybe it shouldn't, and maybe our land development code needs to change because other cities have, depending on the zone. So,
He's tipped based on the size.
yeah, but other cities don't have it that way. Here it is. So you see what I'm saying? So,
And
You know one of
The
the residents stayed there? All the residents that were opposed to the zone change stayed there. They listened to the item on putting the carports to the front. They asked for any public comments, nobody said no. And these are residents that don't want higher density, because they all stayed behind and listened to the item on the carports, and nobody opposed the item to the carports.
no, my item came after them.
Exactly, but they all say, they were all still there at the meeting. If you look at the tape,
Oh,
all the residents that were opposed to the zone.
Higher density.
The higher density, none of them opposed bringing the carports up to the property line with a vertical.
Yeah,
because they benefited from that.
that's why.
I'm telling you.
So anyway,
People want, in other words, they want more ability to do what they want on their yard.
Have a
It's
functional
about-
carport.
Monday?
To have a functional carport.
Oh, yeah, that's another one, yeah, because
Because the garage turns into a storage
for the
room.
whole car.
Yes.
Parking like that in front of
It really does.
What do we do? You go in, the
if we do a little formal survey, I guarantee you there's probably less than 50% of the people here use their garages for cars. Either storage or
Well,
man
The
cave
city of
or
the future
bedroom.
won't have garages. Your cars are gonna be
Yeah,
somewhere
yeah,
else, and they'll come get you.
Your car's gonna be parked on the roof, right,
Yeah.
Chewy, because it's flying?
You're not gonna
No,
have.
there's gonna be more, there's gonna be car sharing, Uber, all that stuff is gonna be.
And a fleet of cars.
Or a bunch of
Does
scooters.
this committee know anything
I
about
said you'll
that?
have a timeshare ownership
A timeshare
and a fleet
car.
of cars.
In the fleet of cars.
I mean, the quality of car that shows up is, kind of directly related to how much you pay every month. I read a really interesting magazine, I'd never seen it before, maybe.
So too, even in Uber, do you want do you want the basic ride, or do you want the Excel drive, or whatever, they can either charge you, like, they'll tell you the estimated cost is gonna be $8, or you can pay $13 and you get a nicer car.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious to see, typically, it's like, supposed to $25, but let's go in a nicer car. You know, but they already offer that in Uber.
Yeah.
So does this committee want to make any recommendations, or already the recommendation was put forward to,
Yeah, in other words,
just asking,
Let it roll.
yeah. No, I mean,
in a form of an actual motion on that? Let it roll.
I don't think that's something we need to take action on, right?
Okay, that's,
I didn't-
I wanted to make sure.
I didn't.
No, I think that staff should know that,
Okay.
that this thing should be going to
City council.
city council, yeah.
I mean, it's,
Entertain a motion.
we did what we did, it's supposed to
Yeah.
continue on the right path from there, and
To, ask staff to present our,
City council bound, huh?
yeah, to ask staff to present it along with the, you know, with the P and Z's recommendation. You know, to have the two formal, recommendations.
Yeah, we can always say, I guess, I'm not legal, but we can always say that it hasn't been approved by the planning
Motion for
zone.
that, or did you
It's
make-
tabled, that planning
I was
zone.
entertaining somebody to make the motion.
Oh, okay.
Since I'm the
Right.
chairman.
I make the motion that we do what he said.
Yeah. I
got it on.
Both recommendations go to.
Is there a second?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Make a motion to adjourn?
second.
I was-